let's get into it. Welcome to another deep dive. This is where we take source material, could be anything really, and just try to pull out the key insights for you.
That's the idea.
And today our source is quite specific. It's a review by Mary Munoz of the film The Return.
Right. She caught it at the Glasgow Film Festival, its UK premiere.
GFF, yeah. And the mission here is basically to unpack this review, see the film through her eyes, and pull out what she found most interesting or maybe most telling.
And it's timely, too, because the film's directed by Umberto Pasolini. You might know him from Still Life or Nowhere Special.
Oh, right.
And he was heading for a wider UK cinema release pretty soon after the festival. I think April 11th was mentioned. So this review gives us a first look.
Okay, so the film itself, The Return, what's the basic setup according to Munoz?
Well, the review paints a familiar picture, setting-wise. It's Ithaca, over 10 years after the Trojan War.
A long time.
Yeah. Odysseus has been missing all that time. Everyone thinks he's dead. And his kingdom's basically overrun. You've got all these suitors trying to pressure Penelope, his wife, into marrying one of them, take the throne, the wealth.
Standard epic problem.
Exactly. And Telemachus, the son, he's in danger too. Then bam, Odysseus washes up on shore, battered but back.
Okay, so the core story is there, the return of Odysseus. But the review seems pretty quick to say what kind of film this is. It's not your typical swords and sandals thing.
No, definitely not. Munoz makes that clear straight away. She says, don't expect any gods or mythical creatures.
Oh, interesting.
And she also warns that if you're looking for loads of daring hand-to-hand combat, you're probably going to be disappointed.
Wow. Okay. So no gods, no monsters, not much fighting. That really shifts the focus for an Odysseus story, doesn't it?
It does.
So what is it then? According to her, what's the vibe?
She calls it a decidedly visceral human experience, much more grounded.
Human experience, yeah, okay.
Yeah, she uses words like subdued, wordy, suggesting lots of dialogue. And really, a character-driven drama. She even mentions there's almost a dreariness about it.
Dreariness. That's a strong word for Homer.
Yeah, but she links it to Odysseus's despair, you see.
Yeah.
Like, the tone reflects his state of mind after everything he's been through.
Right, right. And she compares it. Wasn't there a comparison to, like, BBC drama?
That's it. A classic BBC Sunday night drama.
Huh. What does that comparison tell you then? What kind of feel does that suggest?
Well, I think it points towards maybe a slower pace. More focus on, like, the internal stuff, the dialogue, relationships.
Less spectacle, more psychology.
Exactly. More intimate, maybe a bit melancholic, which fits with that dreariness she mentioned.
Okay, that paints a clearer picture. Now, the review seems to really focus on one particular element. Ralph Fiennes as Odysseus.
Oh, absolutely. He seems to be the anchor of her whole take on the film.
Right.
His performance gets a lot of attention. Physically, she notes he's extremely ripped and sun-kissed. And apparently, the camera gazes lovingly over his body, showing off every wound and scar. His eyes are even described as luminous as the sea.
Wow, quite the description.
Yeah, she even throws in a little aside comparing his look here to his role as a cardinal in Conclave.
Okay, so visually striking, but what about the actual character portrayal? Beyond the sun-kissed physique.
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. She feels Fiennes portrays Odysseus as profoundly traumatized by his experiences.
Traumatized.
Yeah, like he's disillusioned by war, still capable, sure, but deeply changed, scarred on the inside too. Munoz suggests the film is almost like an exploration of what she calls it, Odysseus PTSD.
Odysseus PTSD. Wow. That's a really modern lens on such an ancient character.
It is. She sort of throws it out there like, could you even diagnose that back then? But it frames his return not as heroic triumph, but as recovery, maybe.
That makes sense with the subdued and dreary descriptions, too. It's all about his internal state.
Precisely. And she highlights one scene in particular involving Fiennes that she thought was truly magnificent.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
The famous scene where he restrings Odysseus's great bow.
Ah, the ultimate test. How does she describe that moment?
She talks about his dominant, hypermasculine archer's stance and how the camera lets you see every sinew tense up.
Intense.
Yeah, it really emphasizes the physicality, the idea that the fate of his kingdom relies on his prowess in that single moment. It sounds like the dramatic high point for Fiennes' character.
And the review actually says his character has the most to do.
It does, yeah.
Which is great for Fiennes, obviously, but it does make you wonder. If he has the most to do, what about everyone else?
Exactly. That's the flip side. If Fiennes is carrying that much weight, The review suggests the other characters, even key ones, played by big actors, don't fare quite as well.
Right, like Juliette Binoche playing Penelope. Huge name. But sounds like the role maybe wasn't quite what you would expect.
Woefully underused is the phrase Munoz uses. Yeah. She says Binoche looks great, mentions her kohl-rimmed eyes by the firelight. Very evocative.
Okay.
But she apparently has so little screen time with Venus Odysseus.
Really? But their reunion is like the whole point.
You'd think. But the review says because of that lack of shared screen time, we never get a sense of Penelope and Odysseus's great love story, even though their chemistry, when they are together, is supposedly palpable.
That feels like a massive missed opportunity then.
It sounds like it. The reviewer also adds that Penelope mostly exists and speaks in relation to the chorus of men, the suitors, which she argues kind of stagnates and flattens any sense of who the character is. Even her weaving and unpicking at the loom, that famous motif, is apparently mentioned but feels underdeveloped.
So Binoche might be doing great work, but the script or the focus just isn't there for Penelope?
That seems to be the implication. Yeah. And it's a similar story for Telemachus, the son.
Played by Charlie Plummer. What's the verdict there?
Pretty brief mention, actually, just that he doesn't get much character development.
Yeah.
His arc is apparently just. Refusing to believe it's Odysseus at first, then accepting him pretty quickly. Not much depth explored there, according to the review.
And the villains, the suitors causing all the trouble.
They're led by Antunes, played by Marwan Kenzari. But the review describes them mainly just lazing around the palace, thinking of new ways to get Penelope or get rid of Telemachus.
Right.
And ultimately calls them interchangeable.
Interchangeable suitors. Not ideal. So it really does sound like Fanes is the standout, but maybe the ensemble around him feels a bit thin based on this review?
That's definitely the impression you get.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. What about how the film looks? Aesthetics. Did the reviewer have anything positive there? Because the setting, Ithaca, is usually pretty stunning.
Yes, absolutely. Despite the criticisms about the script and supporting roles, Munoz does say the film is beautiful to look at.
Good.
She specifically mentions the crystal clear waters and says they will have you longing to book a holiday.
Huh. Okay, so the Greek island visuals deliver.
Seems so. And she also describes the palace interior, saying it's entirely lit by firelight.
Ooh, atmospheric.
Yeah, but what's interesting is how she interprets that. She says the firelight, while maybe beautiful, also makes the palace feel shadowy and untrustworthy, even during the day.
So the visuals reinforce the mood, that kind of unease, maybe linking back to the dreary feel and Odysseus's trauma.
Exactly. It sounds like the look of the film really supports that specific, maybe slightly unsettling atmosphere they were going for.
Okay, makes sense. So let's pull it all together then. Taking everything into account, Fiends, the supporting cast, the look, the tone. What's the reviewer's final word? Her overall verdict on The Return.
Well, she sums it up by saying the film definitely has two really big names attached to it. Scenes in Binoche, obviously, plus some gorgeous scenery and one really powerful performance.
Meaning Fiends.
Meaning Fiends, yeah.
But I sense a but coming.
There's a pretty big but. She follows that up by saying that might be all it has going for it.
Wow. That's pretty harsh.
It's quite direct, yeah.
Yeah.
She circles back to that earlier comparison, reinforcing the feeling that it does feel like a television drama that doesn't quite translate to the big screen.
Okay. So to sort of recap the review's key takeaways, The Return sounds like it's visually quite nice, maybe even beautiful in parts. It takes a more grounded, character-focused, possibly quite subdued approach to the Odysseus myth.
Right.
It seems to be massively carried by Ralph Fiennes, giving this really powerful central performance, possibly exploring Odysseus through a lens of trauma, like PTSD.
That seems key.
But on the downside, the supporting characters, including major ones like Penelope and Telemachus, might feel underdeveloped or underused, and the overall package might feel a bit small scale, more suited for TV than a big cinematic experience.
That really captures the essence of Mary Munoz's critique, I think. Strengths in performance and visuals, but maybe weaknesses in script depth and overall scope.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on. Based on this dive into the review, how does really digging deep into one character's internal struggle, framing Odysseus through something like PTSD, change how we see not just the hero, but the whole epic story itself?
Yeah, it definitely shifts the focus from external deeds to internal consequences, doesn't it?
It makes you think about these, mythical legends, not just as archetypes, but as people, maybe even broken people, something to consider if you decide to check out the film.